You see the headlines every single year, and they just seem to get worse, right? Massive, uncontrollable wildfires just scorching everything in their path. And when you're up against something that powerful, you start looking for some pretty extraordinary solutions. There's this one idea that keeps popping up, and it sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. What if we could just make it rain? So that's the big question we're tackling today. Can we actually become masters of the weather and just summon a downpour whenever we need one to fight these awful fires? The answer? Well, it's pretty fascinating. But to get there, we got to understand the science first. All right, so to even start answering that question, we first have to figure out how you can make it rain at all. The technology is called cloud seeding, and you might be surprised to hear it's actually been around for decades. So what is it exactly? Well, cloud seeding is basically a way to give a cloud a little helping hand. And notice that keyword right there, improves. You're not creating rain out of thin air. You're just encouraging a cloud that's already there to get a little better, a little more efficient at producing rain or snow. It's more of a nudge than it is a magic trick. Okay, so here's a little physics 101 for you. A cloud is basically just a ton of supercooled water vapor. But that vapor needs something to grab onto, a surface to form a droplet or an ice crystal. Think about it like dew forming on grass in the morning. Without that blade of grass, the moisture just stays in the air. Well, in a cloud, those surfaces are called condensation nuclei. They're just tiny little particles of dust or salt floating around. So how does it work? Think of it like a four-step recipe. First, you add an artificial seed, like silver iodide, into a cloud that's ready to go. Step 2, boom, that water vapor has something to cling to, and it starts forming tiny ice crystals. Those new crystals then act like little magnets, just gathering up more and more moisture, until finally, step 4, they get so heavy they just fall to the ground as rain or snow. It's a whole chain reaction, all kicked off by that one tiny seed. This diagram is a great way to see what's really going on. So, the part on the left, that's your regular, unseeded cloud. It's full of all this supercooled water, but the droplets are just too small and light to fall. Now, look at the right. After we've seeded it, those particles we introduced have given the droplets a structure to build on. They form bigger, heavier ice crystals, and that's the difference maker. They get heavy enough to fall. We've just given the cloud the little nudge it needed to release all that moisture it was holding. So what are these magic ingredients we're putting in the clouds? Well, the most popular one by far is silver iodide. And why is that? It's because its crystal structure is almost identical to an ice crystal. It's basically the perfect microscopic template. But other things work too, like dry ice or even certain kinds of salt can be used to kickstart that process. And let me be clear, this is not just some fringe science experiment. Oh no, cloud seeding is a real established technology that's being used all over the globe for a whole bunch of surprising reasons. Just take a look at this map. It gives you a sense of the scale we're talking about. Over 24 countries have active programs to modify the weather. It's used a lot in places like the western US and China to boost rain and snow, but also in parts of Europe to stop crop-damaging hail. So yeah, from the Americas to Asia, this is a real-world tool that people are using. And the reasons they use it are pretty diverse. The big one, of course, is fighting drought. You increase mountain snowpack over the winter, and that acts as a natural water reservoir for the spring and summer. But it's also used to prevent hail by making clouds drop softer rain instead of destructive ice. It can even be used to clear up fog at airports, or, and this is wild, to actually stop rain from falling over a certain spot. You want a crazy example? Let's talk about the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Officials there wanted a totally dry opening ceremony, no exceptions. So what did they do? They used planes and rockets to seed the rain clouds before they even got to the city. They basically forced them to dump all their rain on the suburbs, creating this like rain-free bubble right over the stadium. Incredible, right? So how do they actually do this? How do you get these particles up into a cloud? Well, the most direct way is from a plane. They have these special flares on the wings that release the seeding stuff right into the cloud. But you can also do it from the ground. You set up these high-altitude generators that shoot out a plume of silver iodide, and then you just let the natural wind currents carry it up into the clouds for you. All right, so the science is solid,
The technology is real. It's used all over the world. Now, let's get back to our original burning question and see what happens when we apply all this to the chaotic world of a wildfire. And this is where we hit a major wall. The number one most important rule of cloud seeding, the thing you have to remember, is this: you cannot make a cloud from nothing. You can only work with a cloud that's already there. And that one rule? Well, it changes everything.
Okay, this slide lays out the fundamental problem perfectly. On the left, you have the ideal conditions for cloud seeding. You've got existing clouds, lots of humidity, cool air, gentle winds. Now look at the right. These are the conditions you find over a massive wildfire. Clear blue skies, intense heat, bone-dry drought conditions, and crazy, violent, unpredictable winds. The very things that create and feed a wildfire are the exact opposite of what you need to make it rain.
And there you have it. That's our answer. Well, yeah, in theory, you could put out a fire with rain you helped create. In the real world, it's just not going to happen. By the time a fire is big enough to be a real problem, the atmosphere above it is totally wrong. There are simply no good clouds to seed.
So, is that it then? Is the whole idea just a bust when it comes to fires? Well, not exactly. It just means we need to think about this technology a little differently. It's not a miracle cure. It's a very specific tool for very specific jobs.
Remember, this is a tool for enhancement, not creation. Even under perfect conditions, most studies show cloud seeding can boost precipitation by about 5 to 20%. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a huge deal if you're trying to fill a reservoir over a whole winter. But it's not the epic, fire-quenching downpour you'd need to stop a megafire in its tracks. But here's where the conversation gets really interesting. Okay, so it can't be an emergency fire extinguisher. But could it be part of a fire prevention strategy? What if we started using cloud seeding in areas that are prone to fire, but we did it during their wet season? To increase the snowpack, to get more moisture in the soil, to make that whole landscape more resilient before fire season even kicks off.
And that kind of leaves us with this big final thought, doesn't it? We're always looking for these dramatic, heroic, last-minute solutions to giant problems. But maybe the answer here isn't summoning rain to fight a fire that's already raging out of control. Maybe the most powerful tools we have are the quiet, preventative ones we use long before anyone ever sees smoke on the horizon.